Domaine de la Romanée-Conti is the most expensive Burgundy. And I have had the privilege of drinking it. And I've never paid for it. That's the secret. My first week of business, I was full every single day, twice a day, with American lesbians who are the best, most loyal people in the world. These are wines that only a weirdo like me would appreciate.
If you had one for life, Burgundy or Bordeaux wine?
For life?
Yeah, for life.
I have to say Burgundy or else my husband will divorce me.
Hi everyone, so welcome to the show. Today I have the pleasure to be with Caroline or Caroline, depends if you're French or English. So she went from the US, apparently the Bay Valley, to France.
The Bay Area.
Oh, the Bay Area, oh sorry. Sorry, my geography is a bit wrong. Well, Caroline, thank you, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Fabian, for having me.
You're welcome. So actually, before we get started, you have a very unusual profile because I saw you went from Archaeology in Oxford to like doing some blind tasting, wine tasting competition that you won some, and now opening a wine business. Yes. So it's quite all over the place.
Yes, I have had an interesting career in wine now for, I would say, honestly, close to 20 years. I did my undergrad at Oxford. I actually lived in the UK for 9 years. When I was a teenager, I moved there at 16 to live with my dad. And then I went to Oxford where I studied archaeology and anthropology. And while I was there, I joined the wine club. And in the wine club, there was a little splinter group, the Oxford Blind Wine Tasting Society. And we did blind wine tasting. It was nerdy. It was a group of weirdos in a windowless room, swirling and sniffing and scribbling in silence, and then arguing for an hour. And so that was a really unique education in wine. And we have a match against Cambridge every year. And in 2009, I was top taster. I tied with another girl, but it took me a long time to admit that in public. But that is a big deal in the UK wine industry. It's judged by Hugh Johnson and Jancis Robinson, who are very important wine writers there. And we're kind of the wine Illuminati. We're spit out all over the world. There's people who did this, and I was sort of the sacrifice for my year. So,
what kind of wine were you testing?
Wine from all over the world.
Okay.
So it's hard. It's really hard. We had to guess the grape country, region, sub-region, district, and vintage of the wine, which is really hard. And you still got points if you were wrong for the right reasons. So it's hard. I was very good at it. I am out of practice now, but at my peak when we were, training for the match, we were tasting 40 wines a week. Oh, wow. It's a lot, yeah. And we were tasting wines from all over the world because something that French people hate, but is true, is London and by proxy Oxford is a great place to learn about wine because it has the best wine market in the world.
Oh, interesting.
Because they drink a lot, but they don't make a lot of wine.
Yeah, also well, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay, that's a good story. Before we deep dive, so you moved to France, but you chose Lyon and not Paris. Why, like Paris was overrated, or?
I started in Paris. I think everyone starts in Paris. And it was 2017. I had lived in Paris a little bit in 2013 as well. I did a year in France, 2012, 2013. I was an au pair and a grape picker in Saint-Emilion. Then I was a chalet girl in Sainte-Foy-Tarentaise in the Alps. And then I was a waitress in Paris, so that was 2013.
That was the real immersion.
Yeah. And then in 2017, I came back, and I was in Paris for that summer, and it was also pretty crappy weather that year. I don't know if you remember, 2017 was kind of... And I came to Lyon for 2 weeks to study French because I wanted to go visit my friends in the Alps. Okay. And when I was in Lyon, I was like, I bet I can get a job in wine here. This seems like a nice place. I'd be close to the Alps, so I can ski a lot. And so I decided to move there. Very quickly realized there were no jobs for me. My French was not good enough, and the Lyonnais are famously fermés. It is not an easy place to get in with the locals. Okay. So I was not able to get a job working for someone else, but I did remember my blind wine tasting experience and how enjoyable that was, and I decided to create Lyon Wine Tastings, which offers comparative wine tastings, the way I did it, the way I learned, for tourists, because most people coming to Lyon are coming for a day or two. They don't have time to go to Beaujolais or Côte Rôtie. You spend all day in the, in the car, and we've all been to vineyards. I love going to the vineyards. Like, don't get me wrong, it's the best. But if you don't have time to go to the vineyards and you want to learn about all of these wines, Lyon wine tastings is what we do. So we do Burgundy, Beaujolais, and the Rhone, and it's comparative, right? So you have 5 wines in front of you. It's really fun.
Oh, this is where the Bordeaux version of myself should kick in. It's like, okay, so there's just like Burgundy kind of wine, like East wine.
So we have a 2-hour radius. So sometimes I'll play with that a little bit, go to Jura. We can add a Jura in there, but we definitely would never serve Bordeaux. And you do not see Bordeaux on a Lyonnais wine list. I mean, very rare.
I've noticed that in restaurants, that in the Bordeaux area, there's often Burgundy wine and Bordeaux and Beaujolais wine. But in Burgundy, it's pretty much only Burgundy wine.
We are Chauvin. We are, we are very, Chauvin is a funny word because it doesn't really translate as faux ami in English. It's like chauvinistic, but it's not about sexism. It's like nationalism, but on a small scale, right? So the Lyonnais are very proud of Burgundy and of the Rhone. And, in Burgundy, obviously, they're very proud of Burgundy. So, yeah, we don't drink a lot of Bordeaux. And my husband, who is a wine merchant, he has all the greatest Bordeauxs, but I'm like, dude, why don't you sell more Bordeaux? He's like, I don't want Bordeaux. I mean, we'll have steak at home, and he'll want to open a Burgundy. I'm like, why are we not drinking Bordeaux with this?
Would you say it's harder to be, seen or as accepted as a professional, as an American in wine tasting in France, and, in wine, period, but also as a woman?
Definitely, yeah. I think being old now helps. It was a lot harder when I was in my 20s.
Yeah,
I'm
but
38
if you're
now.
old, we're like dinosaurs, I don't know.
No, it's easier once you get older. But I think that being an American has been challenging only with people who are not in the industry. People who are in the wine industry know that there's good wine everywhere in the world. The basic French guy who doesn't drink wine, who only drinks beer, and whose grandpa only drank, Côte du Rhône from the PMU, and Cuby, he's like, oh, an American in wine. I'm like, dude, you don't know anything about wine, and you don't know anything about anything. I don't care about what you think. But wine professionals, they're not like that.
That's good.
Yeah.
So okay.
It's been fine.
There's no a priori. So
I mean, no, I think wine professionals in France appreciate the world of wine, and there are great wines everywhere in the world. So.
Okay, that's good. That's good to know. Very good to know. Okay, let's try to, I don't know if we can debunk that. We were talking about this before we started the recording. Is expensive wine actually better?
Sometimes. Not always. Definitely not always. A lot of the time you're paying for the branding. For example, Domaine de la Romanée-Conti is the most expensive Burgundy. And I have had the privilege of drinking it before. I've had it 3 times in my life now. And I've never paid for it. That's the secret. Yeah.
That makes it taste a lot better.
That makes it taste a lot better. No, it's extremely good. Right. It's delicious. But I remember we had it with my husband and his friends for one of his birthdays. And we also had a trappé right next to it. So the trappé bottle was probably worth about $600, which is still a lot. And then the DRC is worth what, like $2 or $3 grand. Was the difference between those 2 bottles that big? Not really.
That's mostly the story you're buying.
They're both amazing, but already if you're spending 600 euros on a bottle of wine, that's an extraordinary amount of money for something so fleeting. Again, I didn't pay for it, so. and I kind of wouldn't. I think at this point, I'm quite keen actually to make content about wines like that, and so I probably will have to pay for them. My husband will let me steal some things, but not that.
Because your husband also works in wine.
Yeah, he's a caviste. He has a wine shop. But I do think that an interesting thing about the content around these wines is that it is almost never women who make content about fine wine because we don't have as much access to it. It's a boys' club. We're not in the room. We're not sitting at the table. We are often not the sommeliers at the places where they are serving those kinds of wines. And so women do tend to be quite locked out of the finest, rarest wines. Also just because they're super expensive. And so the people that have enough money to play with it like that, they're dudes and they want to drink with other dudes. And the only women in that room are not there for the wine. If you know what I mean. Yeah.
It took me a couple of seconds to be honest. But okay, so some of those wines, because I think it's an important topic. Some people think like if they're buying a lot, they think it's going to be good.
Yeah.
But there are some cases where it's the case, and some then we can
it
debate.
It should be good.
But sometimes it's
It should always be good. Is it that much better? That's the question.
Yeah.
It should always. If you're spending more than €100 on a bottle of wine, or even $100 less so, dollars are different because American wine is so expensive. But if you're spending more than €100 on a bottle of wine, it better be damn good. The difference is 100 versus 200 that much different? It should be pretty different. 200, 600, 600, 2,000.
Yeah, the more you climb.
It's debatable, right? And I think at the point...
And you have to be educated at some point because not everyone's like you as well.
Yeah.
You know, it's like sometimes...
Like there's no point if you're not super into it. That's something that I find that wine people come across. We hesitate to share our best wines with civilians. And I'm
civilians.
I'm trying to convince my husband not to do that because it's like, who is deserving of great wine? Everyone. If we want to be generous with it, everyone is deserving of great wine. It's not, just because they wouldn't want to spend that money or they don't care as much doesn't mean they shouldn't be part of the experience, because the best wine experiences are among friends and loved ones and a great meal.
So I should ask you the question, what wine do you secretly love that the wine snobs would judge you for it?
I'm a lot less snobby than someone like my husband who only wants to drink fancy Burgundy. Let's see. I mean, I love a rosé de piscine. I love, I'm in the summer when it's hot, I want rosé with an ice cube in it, right? I'm pretty open to everything. Well, I could say Beaujolais. Obviously, in Lyon, we're very proud of Beaujolais. Beaujolais has a bad reputation historically, which it, in some ways, really deserved. Does it deserve it today? No. Beaujolais is amazing. I'm a stand for Beaujolais.
A message to the wine snobs, then.
Beaujolais, if you like Burgundy, Beaujolais is amazing, good value. There's a ton of really great producers there. And if you want to visit the region, the people in Beaujolais are going to be a lot more welcoming to you than they are in Burgundy. Because in Burgundy, they don't care about tourists. They don't need you. But in Beaujolais, they're like, please try our wine. We love you. And they're so nice. It's such a beautiful region. So I am Team Beaujolais. Go visit Beaujolais. Buy Beaujolais. You don't need to drink de boeuf. You can buy artisan production Beaujolais from wonderful people.
But I like the boeuf as well.
That's it. Yeah.
Okay. Do you think because you mentioned your husband's preferences to more, let's say, fancy wines and Burgundy wines, do you think it's what the French art de vivre actually looks like? Like, trying to have snob tastes
No. L'art de vivre is just, I think, enjoying beauty, whether it's food or architecture, fashion, movement, but also taking time to enjoy it. That's how I would perceive that.
Well, is there something that you know now that would shock someone from California? We're talking about wine, because wine is also famous in California, obviously.
I would say French people are much nicer than they get credit for. Yeah.
So the French wine does have some benefits.
Yeah, not just the wine,
makes people nicer.
In general, I think French people are given a bad rep.
I prefer to think, it's the French wine who makes us nicer, to be very biased.
Yeah. And we have good wine in California, that's for sure.
So we talked about the expensive wine, but on the other end of the spectrum, because, wine is supposed to be accessible. This is like the average Joe's also kind of beverage, in France, I'm talking. But so it's also intimidating for some people, because you can order a beer at the bistro, but you cannot order a glass of wine in France, or if you do that, it's going to be a bad one.
No.
So how do people, again, uneducated wine-wise people can do to spot on, the good wines? Or
I mean, I think the funny thing about wine is that it gets people really anxious. Oh my God, I don't know about this thing. I'm like, well, do you care? And have you tried to learn? So if you don't care, who cares? What? I don't care. I don't care if you don't know about wine. That's not my problem. If you do care, take a course. Take the W set is a great course, and you can do that here, or you can do that anywhere in the world. The W set 1 or 2 is a great introductory course, and learn about wine. There's plenty of online resources too. But if you do care about wine, it is worth educating yourself a little bit about it, because it is knowable. It is a knowable thing, but you do have to learn about it. It's a pretty big subject. It's vast. It's changing all the time, but the basics are very manageable.
Do you think the French usually only care about French wine?
Yeah. And they're missing out.
So that has leg.
They're missing out, because there is exceptional wine all over the world, even in China now. I mean, they've been making wine since the 80s.
I suppose I'm very French. I'm very French focused.
There's French people making wine in China since the 80s.
Oh, wow.
So
yeah, I know the guy we mentioned, Bernard Magrez, or Magret, I don't know how you pronounce. But he he's a French businessman in wine. He's a billionaire now, but in his 90s. But he has wineries in California, Chile, and other places in South America. So. Yeah.
I mean, there really is great wine all over the world, even going back to England. There's great wine in England now.
Yeah, well, global warming, I suppose, helps in that regard.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah. Do you think Paris is just like the marketing department of France, and like Lyon is more like the real thing?
No, I love Paris. And whenever I come to Paris, I get FOMO because it is so opulent. It's so beautiful. There's so much cool stuff going on. Like, I do get Paris FOMO. I have to say, this time I'm here with my 4-month-old baby. I don't have any FOMO. I want to go home. It's too loud here. And there's too many people. But Paris is amazing. No, Paris is amazing. And I understand why people come to Paris and they fall in love with Paris. You know, I tried, and I think if I had maybe lived in a different neighborhood, I would have found myself more settling in Paris, but I just couldn't get my foot in Paris. And when I got to Lyon, it was like, okay, what about this place? And then I made friends really quickly, and I started my business, and I just it was a moment in time. I got very lucky, I think. But I love Lyon, and I love living there.
Well, we talk about wine, but obviously there's this thing they call pairing. So there's the food that comes with. Well, you've tried a few places in France. Do you think French reputation around food is deserved?
Absolutely, yeah. I don't think anywhere has the best food in the world. I mean, if you really had to put me on a desert island, I would take Mexican or Chinese over French any day. But French food is incredible. And the reason why I think it's so good is because we have all of these regional, geographic, and geological differences that give us all these wonderful ingredients from different places. You know, in Brittany, we have the butter. And, you know, in Normandy, the cream and the butter. We have, obviously, near me, we have all the wine. In Bordeaux, we have the goat cheeses in the Loire. We have, you know, the abricots de Bergeron, wherever those are from. I mean, the noix de Grenoble. Like, we have so many different ingredients that are so special that have their own terroir, which is a wine word, but applies to everything. We have all these cheeses. We have such a care for quality of ingredients. That's why French food is so good.
I love
and
that
the
you say
seasonality.
we.
Yeah, I mean, I've been here long enough, I think.
No, that's good.
Yeah.
That's good. I love that. And so, is this a myth? This like wine pairing stuff? Because like I see some debates around that. You know, like I don't like having white wine with fish or red wine.
Not a myth. Okay. Not a myth. Red wine, the tannins in red wine, which are the chewy thing, you know, that they will make fish taste metallic, or actually, fish makes red wine taste metallic. So usually the wine pairing is actually the food messing with the wine.
Oh.
So I would say the red wine and fish thing, I would stick with whites or a light red, but I would stick with whites. And I think the biggest misconceptions really are, I think white wine goes better with most food. So with the exception of like meat, heavy meat, white wine goes better. Cheese, white wine is way better with cheese. It's a lot less likely to argue with your cheese. If you think about something like a Saint-Marcellin, which is a local cheese to us, it's a small, melty, creamy cheese that can be quite intense, you know, or like a really stinky brie like that. You have red wine with that, it's just going to go ugh. And so that needs white wine. It needs a crisp white wine. It needs a white wine that's really neutral, like a Chardonnay or, you know, a Sancerre or something like that. You need crisp wines. Champagne is a really good food wine. We went to a Michelin star restaurant on Monday for our wedding anniversary, and we shared a bottle of champagne for all 5 courses, and it was perfect with everything. So, but it was good champagne. It was Celos.
So I'm on Team Champagne.
Yeah, it was very good. Yeah.
You went for the real thing. Yeah. Well, actually, speaking of champagne and white wine, I'll be very, very biased and very French, you know, like focusing on France. But so you mentioned Burgundy. Well, there's other wine regions, but like the biggest one, Burgundy and Bordeaux. And we were actually talking about this before. Like for example, in Bordeaux, you have a kind of stronger wine, or like you have to leave them age a lot more, so that like the Pomerol or the Saint-Emilion. So first, why is there such a discrepancy between those two regions? And can you drink a wine from like Bordeaux or Burgundy, like on a good year, after 10 years, like they're both the same?
They're never going to be the same. Why is there a big discrepancy? Bordeaux is hotter. The grapes are different. In a hotter place with grapes that have thicker skin, we're going to have more tannins, more flavor, just more. And that needs time to integrate and calm down, you know? Wine is alive, right? So if you drink a Bordeaux that's 5 years old, a big Bordeaux, let's just also acknowledge Bordeaux is huge. There are plenty of Bordeaux that are not expensive and that are being made to drink now. It's how the winemaker intends it. Is it supposed to be drunk now? There is a lot of Bordeaux that will do that. But if we're talking about Petrus or, Cheval Blanc that we were talking about earlier, those wines need 20 years, like at a minimum.
Oh, wow.
You can start drinking them at 10 years. We had a Chateau Palmer that was 2007. No, 2017. No, 2007. That was more than 10 years old. Oh my God, I'm so old now. I'm like, oh, that was yesterday. No.
I can't
And that was
relate with
amazing. But, those wines need at least 10 years. I would say same with Napa. Anything really big that's made for aging, 10 years. And don't touch it.
But if you compare like a Chateau Palmer, for example, with a Pommard, 10 years old each, like the Pommard is like...
The Pommard would be perfect, yeah. Burgundy, the best Burgundies I think are really nice at 10 years. They can definitely, some of them can age for longer. But because they don't have, honestly, as much tannins and structure, they're going to just not sing as long. I think something that people do, a huge mistake that people make, especially people with big collections, is that they wait too long to drink their wine and they get very precious about it. It's wine. It's supposed to be drunk. And the market where you used to be able to sell your wine, if you had aged it, it just doesn't exist anymore. Provenance is everything. So if I bought futures of Bordeaux en primeur, if I bought a bunch of Bordeaux, 10 years ago and I wanted to sell it today, it's like worth the same amount. So there was a time when that wasn't true. In the early 2000s, there was a ton of prospecting and it went crazy, but that's not the case anymore. I wouldn't call wine a good investment. If you're going to buy wine, buy it so you can drink it. Keep it in a cool, dark place and don't touch it.
Actually, for the, again, like a pro tip you could share. So let's say Burgundy or Bordeaux, again, let's overgeneralize, but so you said Burgundy, the perfect timing to get some is like 10-ish years.
It depends on the vintage, it depends. Like some vintages are not going to be that great. And Burgundy has a lot of vintage variation. Burgundy has a lot of volume variation. Burgundy suffers from hail and frost and is already tiny production. So whatever Burgundy you can get is going to be good. But even 5 years, it depends. 2 years sometimes. Some of the whites can age for a while too. It depends on the wine.
What is too long, for example, for a...
How long is a piece of string? It depends on depends on the wine. And I think the trick is if you have a case, right? Let's say a case is 6 bottles. I buy that after the wine is probably 3 years old. That's when I'm buying it. 2 or 3 years old is when I'm accessing it. I put it in my cellar. I will taste, if it's a Burgundy, I'll taste it when it's 5 or 6 years old. If it's super good, let me drink 4 of those bottles, we'll keep 2. Because if it's really, really good, drink it now. Don't wait for it to get bad. And I think people do that. They're like, oh, but if it's singing, drink it. Drink it. Save 1 or 2 bottles. Or just 1,
Well, that would make sense. It's just that, obviously, like you're educated into that, but most people aren't. And it's, they're looking for those quick wins or pro tips.
The people that are going to buy a case of wine expensive enough to be worth keeping in your cellar, and you need some sort of cool, dry place. Those people, I think, owe it to themselves to be educated about how long that might last. And when you're purchasing the wine, you ask, how long should I keep this before I touch it? When is the sweet spot? And that's it. But I think for most people, you don't need to worry about it because most people are buying wine from the caviste. Most people are buying 1 bottle at a time. And most of the wines that are produced are meant to be drunk now. Because producers understand how we drink. Most wine is consumed the day it's purchased.
You got me thinking. Because you're so knowledgeable about all of this, but you started your business during COVID.
Before COVID, no, before COVID.
Well, yeah, but like COVID hit like right after. And so like kind of did everything going wrong kind of actually helped you win?
So Lyon wine tasting started in 2018. So I had 2 summers before COVID and it was doing pretty well. My opening summer coincided with the Women's World Cup in Lyon. So that was very helpful because my first week of business, I was full every single day, twice a day with American lesbians who are the best, most loyal people in the world who like freaking wrote me reviews. I said, this is my first week in business. Can I have a review? So nice. And I just got like, bam of amazing reviews. And that really kicked me off. So thank you, American lesbians, for helping me out. And then, we had our second summer and that was going well in 2020. It was going to be great. And then, of course, everything, closed down. So I shifted very early on to online education. I was one of the first people to do virtual wine tastings. And I was actually in the New York Times for that. And that was early April, I think, or even late March. So that was early. And I was able to shift to creating community online, doing virtual wine tastings. And that was fun while it was fun. But I think all of us got sick of drinking with a computer. But at the beginning, we liked it, when we needed it. So it was something that didn't work out long run. But that's really when I started focusing more attentively on my Instagram.
Okay. I have a bit of a controversial question then to follow up on that. Do you think natural wine is a revolution or just like winemaking dressed up as a trend?
I think natural wine has been a really important movement because it is a backlash to an overproduction of, sort of synthetic wines with lots of chemicals, lots of pesticides, lots of uniformity. The mass-produced wines on the market, they are uniform. They don't have vintage variation. They are full of lots of crap. They're not good for us. They're not good for the land. That's all right. I think there's very good natural wine. There's also a lot of natural wine that tastes like feet, and I'm not into that. So I'm not black and white when it comes to natural wine. I think there is good natural wine. I like what they stand for. Okay. I think there are plenty of winemakers who aren't that good.
How can people spot in France what's a natural wine, for example? Labels?
It would be more the place you purchase it from.
Okay.
If the guy has tattoos and a mustache, it's probably a natural wine. No, the vibey natural wine bars, the Kevs, it doesn't really mean anything. Organic, biodynamic, these are words that have legislation behind them. A natural wine should be organically farmed, even if it's not certified. A natural wine will not have added yeast, so it will only have the yeast in the environment, which can be a problem if nasty yeast come in and make it weird. Natural wine will be unfiltered and unfined, and natural wine will have the least amount of sulfites added to it as possible. Sulfites are an important part of the winemaking process. They keep your wine from turning into vinegar. So I'm team add the sulfites that you need to create a stable product that can get to market. And some people are not doing that, and you end up opening a bottle and it is trashed.
Do you think, well, it's a personal opinion, but do you think French wine is actually losing ground to like more accessible countries, I would say, again, wine-wise?
I think it's a very interesting question that has a historical basis. I think here we drink French wine, and that is good, and it's a detriment also. We don't explore the world of wine as much here, and there is really some fantastic wine all over the world. But globally, French wine will always have a place in any emerging market because of its status. The French have always been good at positioning themselves as, really since Coco Chanel and as arbiters of taste, right? So when, for example, when the middle class in China started really growing and people in China started getting more wealth, French wine was it, right? Now they don't care about French wine as much anymore. They still do quite a bit. But now they're drinking Californian wine and Australian wine. They're making their own wine. But when it begins, it's always France because that is the top. And it's still, for people who know, it's still, Burgundy is it. Burgundy, the best Burgundies are so rare that you have to be such a nerd and you have to be rich to be able to play in that. So, and they just are so hard to find. There's just not a lot of it. That's one thing, Bordeaux versus Burgundy. Bordeaux is not rare. They make a lot of it. Burgundy is so rare. There's just not that much of it.
Yeah, I've seen the most expensive bottle of wine that's been sold was like a Domaine de la Romanée Conti, like 700,000.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. That's 1945. Yeah,
1947 or something.
1945, end of the year, because end of the war. The war was a series of really bad years, and obviously the Germans were drinking all the wine and trashing everything. And then 1945 was this vintage of the century, amazing year because the rest of the years of the war just had rained the whole time. It was a nightmare. So that's always a special year in French wine for many reasons.
History-wise.
Yeah.
Do you think the guy who bought it will actually drink it?
I don't know. I doubt it. Probably not. It probably wouldn't be good anymore.
Yeah.
It's too old. It's almost 100 years old at this point. Well, maybe not quite. But it's...
Yeah, and you could see on the bottle it has lost a lot.
It would be vinegar.
Well, that would be interesting to find out.
There are wines that can age that long. I have had Bordeaux from the 50s. That was very interesting and not totally dead on its last legs, but not totally
recently
dead.
Or
a couple years ago. Yeah, maybe not.
Because if it was a couple decades ago, that was
no. When did I? It's my stepfather's vintage, so we have a bunch of 53s, and we crack into those sometimes. Some wines can last that long though. Any fortified wines, sherry, Madeira, port, some German Rieslings. Although the German Rieslings from the wartime years hit a little different. But there are definitely wines that can age that long. But they are not going to taste like what a normal person wants a wine to taste like. These are wines that only a weirdo like me would appreciate.
A weirdo like me, I like. Okay. Well, I think it's good because at the end of the day, like you were saying, I like your angle as to like, well, do you care? Does it taste to you? Because at the end of the day, if someone says like this wine is the best, but you don't like it,
Who cares?
yeah,
I don't live in your mouth. I mean,
it's personal.
I don't care.
Do you think there is such a thing as being like educated? Like, for example, my uncle keep on saying, as he's been raised in Bordeaux, he's been educated to, well, Bordeaux wine, and that's why he doesn't like Burgundy wine. So do you think this has legs, or if it's just like a mental block?
It's what you're used to. I'm sure he knows more about Bordeaux than he would about Burgundy. I mean, and in Lyon, people know more about the Rhone than they do about Bordeaux. And
but do you think like it gets to, I mean, do you think it's more of a mental block than really like a mouth taste stuff,
I don't know. I think you do get used to the flavors that you drink. So if you are drinking a lot of heavy Bordeaux, you might have a Burgundy and be like, it doesn't taste like much. Whereas for us in Lyon, and I've even found my palate has adjusted to these wines, which are lighter in style.
Oh, wow. I have a controversial question for you because like you tell about all those, generalization around wine, but what would be your favorites? Or some of your favorites?
Whatever's
Okay,
in
let's
front
say.
of me. You know what I love that I didn't ever have access to until I moved to Lyon is the whites from the Northern Rhone. Not Condrieu, but Saint-Joseph, Gros-Hermitage, and Hermitage Blanc.
So you're more into white wines?
I love white wine, yeah.
Okay.
But those are Marsanne-Roussanne blends, and they are very special. They're very rare. They are wines that I'm sure you can find pretty easily in Paris, but outside of France are few and far between because, again, they just don't make a lot. And in Lyon, they're pretty common. But I would say a white Hermitage would be something very special that I would enjoy a lot.
Okay, yeah, well, someone cares to comment if they had that. So let's do a quick fire round of questions. Okay, because I like this exercise. And obviously, I have to start with that trickiest question for you. If you had one for life, Burgundy or Bordeaux wine?
For life?
Yeah, for life.
White and red? Or just red? Just white?
Well, yeah, just one.
I have to say Burgundy or else my husband will divorce me.
He's going to be watching. I don't know.
Yeah,
we can clip this. Okay. Do you have an idea of a wine that, off the top of your head, under 15 euros, that may still impress people?
A Côte du Rhône.
Okay.
The Côte du Rhône's from the Northern Rhone. If you can get a Northern Rhone producer who makes a Côte du Rhône, that will probably be 100% Syrah and will be really amazing.
Okay, good tip.
Under 50, you said?
Under 15, how would I say?
Okay, yeah, still Côte du Rhône.
Okay. 50 and 15 is a bit of a... the other way, the best expensive wine actually worth the hype.
I would
say... One of the. So let's not make enemies.
Probably some champagne. I mean, honestly, we had Celos. That was the first time I've ever had it. It was extraordinary.
How much the bottle? I mean, not in a restaurant.
At a restaurant, I think it was around 400. It was expensive.
So it's probably like 200 euros a bottle? Okay.
But it's just hard to find. But it was very nice. Yeah.
Okay. So actually for you, that would be a champagne. Okay. One French food, because we didn't talk about food much, but one French food like you would hit forever. I love the bread. The bread?
You guys make the best bread in the world. That is a fact, yeah.
Okay.
But not necessarily baguette, but like a nice
I would say it buys into the baguette cliche.
Yeah, I mean, the good baguette is very good. No, I mean, maybe the bread or what else? I mean, I just like, right now it's asparagus season. Some asperges.
Yeah. Is there, to cross, I mean, I know this, we have some French viewers, so to cross some of those guys, one French habit you'll never adopt?
Oh gosh, let me think. French habit I'll never adopt. Oh, that's a hard one.
Well,
I'm becoming more French all the time.
We can reverse it. One French habit you adopted very quickly.
Very quickly. I don't know, being sure of myself. No, a French habit I'll never adopt.
Charmingly unapologetic.
Yeah. I do think this is very controversial and French people don't like it. But I think French people, even with all of their anti-authority, manifestation, blah, 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 they do listen to authority. Like, if you go to the doctor and your doctor says something, you're never going to go to another doctor to get another opinion.
Right.
And like Americans, we want to talk to everyone about everything. We're going to Google it too. We're going to spend hours on Wikipedia. We're going to
challenge people's opinion.
We're going to just, we want to make sure that we get a second opinion. And I think in France, they're like, oh, doctor is God. Doctor is God. That's a very French idea. And
that's a fair point.
Yeah, I'm not like that. I'm like, I'm going to Google it first. Yeah.
No, but that's a fair... I never actually considered this angle.
And I do think in school, French children are very much,
taught
that the teacher is correct and you are wrong. There's right and wrong. There's right and wrong. I don't like that. I think that there's a lot of black and white thinking here, and that annoys me.
I like it. It's a very good take. You know, it changed my perspective because never done that. Like you said, the doctor said something. It's like, okay, word of God.
Yeah, he's just a person. You know. Especially if they're old, they can be wrong. You know.
No, but that's very interesting. Very good point. Well, I mean, we could go on and on, but I'll try to keep those short. Karen, thank you for coming. Before we wrap it all up, where can people find you, get in touch, follow you?
Thank you so much for having me. I actually recently launched my own podcast on YouTube called Fishwives of Paris with Emily Monaco, and we talk about French food and wine. It is a myth-busting podcast. We are definitely shady against French people and Americans, and we're just shady in general. It's very fun. So Fishwives of Paris, or you can find me on Instagram at Wine Dine Caroline.
Yeah, that's how I found you. It's a great content. A lot of useful information you're sharing, and I like your take. I mean, you're not bland. You know, you're trying to make statements, and there is a personality there. So I love that.
I'm not afraid to say what I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's very French.
I was as it should be in France. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, Caroline, thank you so much for coming. Thank you for your very good answers.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Merci.
Merci.